welcome to episode 2 of Timm Talk, the podcast about the DC animated universe co-created by Bruce Timm. I'm Chris Lord.
I'm Cameron Dexter.
And today we're talking about episodes 3 and 4 of the animated series. So we're looking at Nothing to Fear, which is the first appearance of the Scarecrow, and then The Last Laugh, which is another appearance by the Joker. So what did you think about watching these two?
Nothing to Fear, I thought, was a great... almost like a mini trilogy of episodes with the first two that we watched, and then this one. It kind of gives a good roundness to who this Batman is. And I'll go into more detail about that after we talk about the episode. Mm-hmm. And then The Last Laugh was just kind of another Joker holiday fun time.
Yeah.
What I think is interesting about these two is it kind of shows the scope of this series, where you have very serious issues going on in Nothing to Fear, dealing with very adult themes. And then The Last Laugh is kind of the episode that reminds you this is a Saturday morning cartoon. You still have to go to that kid audience. It's not just a show for adults, it's for all ages. And so seeing these two kind of shows this is for everyone.
Yeah, I think it's been interesting watching really early episodes with the Joker. We'll go into more detail when we get to that actual episode. But I think you have this image in your head because you remember him by the end of the run.
Right.
You know, so 12 years beyond where we are now, what that character became, you go back to the beginning. And I think they were still working it out.
Yeah, you can see, especially from episode 2, you can see the transition Mark Hamill is still going through. And this one sounded closer, but it still wasn't the Joker that we remember.
Yeah, it's not quite there. But I have to say, Nothing to Fear, a pretty decent episode overall.
I really enjoyed it. I thought I think this was the closest to an origin story that Bruce Timm ever came, because Bruce Timm came out and said that he refused to do a Batman origin story in this series.
Right.
So I think this was his way of doing the origin story in his own way.
Yeah, I was looking up trivia for this episode, and so obviously in this episode, Bruce is exposed to the Fear Talk. So maybe we should just start at the beginning and work right through it. We always forget about that part.
All right, so episode 3, Nothing to Fear. We're going to jump into the story really fast. We open up in a fundraiser for Gotham State University. We finally meet Summer Gleason.
I had a note about that too. Yeah, the last episode where she's some person
officially introduced as the news reporter in Gotham. We meet her, and we meet Dr. Long, who is one of the professors at Gotham State. Mm-hmm. And we learn that Dr. Long, he meets up with Bruce. Dr. Long and Thomas Wayne, Bruce's father, are both, they went to college together.
Yeah.
And then you start the theme with Dr. Long saying that Bruce is a disgrace to the Wayne name. Yeah.
It's interesting having them talk about that now, because we have to kind of take it for granted that Bruce deserves that.
Right.
And it helps that we've had the whole rest of the series, and I think we're going to end up talking a lot about Batman Begins in this episode, because there's tons of elements of that movie are in this episode. So we have that in our minds, like, oh, okay, we've seen Batman Begins. We see especially that scene where he's acting all like, drunk at his house, and they say, oh, you're kind of a shame you bring to the Wayne name. Mm-hmm. Here it's just kind of thrown at him.
Right. And I wanted to say what exactly Dr. Long calls Bruce, because I wanted to ask you what you think this means.
Okay. I forget what he said.
He calls him a self-centered, jet-setting playboy.
That sounds awesome. I mean, if someone called me that, I'd be like, thank you.
Has jet-setting ever been like a negative term to someone?
I don't know. Because no one even uses jet set anymore, right? I mean, it's not even a real modern term.
Means.
I don't know. You just hear. I don't really know even the context of that, and I'm too lazy to look it up.
Yeah. But looking at this episode, I mean, we have the advantage of watching these shows where we've already seen the entire story. Yeah. Trying to think back to a new audience, to an animated Batman, this moment was very crucial, because this is our first time learning about this version of Bruce Wayne.
It's true. Yeah. So it's kind of one of those things you just kind of take it for granted that whatever Bruce is doing, whatever persona he's putting out there, is worthy of that kind of criticism throwing at him. Mm-hmm. I mean, they also kind of established that Dr. Long's a bit of a prick anyways. So
a little bit.
Yeah. But it does give some really cool character stuff in this episode, which I think is part of the reason why it makes it really good.
Huge character stuff, absolutely. So we're in the elevator. It's Dr. Long, Summer Gleason, and Bruce kind of out through the elevator. He sees a bank getting robbed, the university bank, and we finally meet Scarecrow, Dr. Crane, and his two goons that are just as dumb as could be. The perfect stereotype of a goon.
Yeah. The show loves its stereotypical goons.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Bruce suits up as Batman. He jumps into action and then takes down the two goons like they're nothing. And then he's hit with the fear toxin.
Yeah.
And that line mentioned before that he's not worthy of the Wayne name kind of comes back and becomes this mantra of fear for him.
Yeah, when he's experiencing the fear toxin, like the fires around him, Crane, we assume he's it's all good. We assume he's gonna just rob the place, and then he tells his henchmen like, take what you can carry, and then he pulls a gasoline can out. It's like, we're basically gonna burn this fucker down. And so they light the bank on fire. And so at that point, Batman shows up. He's hit with the toxin and he's incapacitated. And he starts hallucinating that his father is then, telling him that he's shameful.
Yeah.
And, of course, we have Batman getting incapacitated before first commercial break. I'll give this one credit. That would actually take him down.
Yeah.
This is better than being hit with a desk. It has, this would actually take Batman down. So,
right.
Yeah, so he's freaking out about that. And then we come back from commercial, and conveniently the sprinklers come on.
Right. So
and save him.
A little bit down in the episode, Summer Gleason's on TV talking about how Batman saved the bank. Did he really save? They had a sprinkler system already set up.
Yeah.
I don't remember him doing anything to turn them on.
No, he didn't. Yeah, if he had triggered them, that would have one thing, but they just come on.
Right.
And save him. So I guess Scarecrow just didn't think that part of it through.
I guess not.
Because it did no damage. Okay, one, he's also setting fire to the vault. So it's not like he set fire to a stack of money. His plan's a little. Yeah,
I'm gonna go into that
here, but
once we get to the end of the episode.
Oh god, yeah, especially there. But regardless, okay, it's more about Batman freaks out. He has this moment, and he's traumatized by what he sees and what he fears. Which is, we see that his fear in this is not living up to his parents,
right?
Which shows how well the writers and creators understand the character, because that really that's his driving force. Is he's doing this for his parents, and that would be his biggest fear, is letting them down. Mm-hmm. They do a nice job with that.
They do, and that's kind of the theme of this episode. So after the fire goes out, the police show up. We get a nice confrontation between Bullock and Batman.
Yeah.
And I think they have a very interesting dynamic, because to me, they're almost, I think they might be the most similar of the characters in this sort.
Yeah,
where
that's fair.
Batman goes around the law to do what he has to do, whereas Bullock uses his power of the law to go around it and do what he has to do. They're kind of competing for who can kind of bend the law the most, almost.
Yeah, no, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, I mean, Bullock once again shows up he's always in an antagonistic role.
Right.
Interesting that just 2 episodes later, Batman seems a very different relationship with the police.
Exactly. I even wrote that down.
The pilot, because the cops are in, it's like, oh my god, Batman, what happened? It's like, wait a minute, weren't you trying to shoot him 2 episodes
exactly
ago? Yeah, I mean, to be fair, that was a pilot versus an ongoing episode, and I think they decided it was better just jump in and have him be kind of cooperative with them on some level. Mm-hmm. And of course, Gordon shows up to dismiss Bullock and let Batman disappear,
calm everything down. Right.
Yeah.
So then we have this beautiful scene in the Batcave where Batman is watching Summer Gleason talk about the news, talk about exactly what happened, and he has another mini hallucination where she's talking about how he saved the bank, but he failed to catch the intruder, failed to catch Scarecrow, and she kind of looks deadpan into the camera, kind of at Bruce, exactly.
Yeah.
Just saying failure.
Failed,
yeah, you failed. Being, this very ghost of Christmas past kind of character.
Yeah, it's fun.
And I'm gonna talk about that in length, because I think that's a very subtle thing that Bruce Timm and Paul Dini kind of jumped in. Mm-hmm. But the hallucination is interrupted when Alfred comes and has his beautiful moment with Bruce, and we see the role, we see what Alfred is.
Yeah,
he is the stability for Batman and Bruce.
Yeah, it's a reminder that he is a father figure for Bruce at the end of the day. He even tells him your father will be proud of you because I'm proud of you. And it's that
great line.
It is a great line. Yeah, and it's a soft little moment between the two of them, and it shows why Alfred is so important, why he's relevant.
But then we also see the other side of Alfred, because after he Alfred turns off the TV, and when he first looks at Bruce, he says, someone dressed up in a frightening costume roaming around scaring people. What will they think of next?
Yeah. It is fun.
You see both sides of Alfred's character, where he is this character to keep things light for Bruce, and when he notices Bruce isn't acting normally when he does his deadpan jokes, he goes into parent mode, and
One other thing I like about this scene is we get to see Bruce at his most genuine, and what I thought was interesting is that there's actually kind of a third voice that Conroy does, because when he's playing Bruce Wayne in public, he's got that like upturned, like really chipper, kind of over the top voice, and when he's gravelly as Batman, and here it's kind of somewhere in the middle,
right?
And that's just him being him, and basically the only person he talks to that way, at least until we spend more time with Robin. Right now, it's just Alfred.
Right.
We talk with Alfred, he just kind of plays this very mid-level voice, like, it's interesting that like it actually emphasizes that there is a real person in there, and that he spends almost all of his time in one persona or the other.
Right.
Yeah.
This question revolves a lot around which is the true mask.
And, one could say that from here there's obviously both,
Yeah.
Oftentimes, Batman is like the real personality, and then, Bruce is kind of the mask. And, again, Batman Begins, they have a line exactly about that.
Yeah.
But it sort of suggests that obviously they're both masks. One is a literal one. Whatever.
Yeah,
but I liked that there was a third voice. And, we still haven't gotten Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. yet as Alfred at this point. It's still Clive Revel. Oh, I forgot who Clive Barker was.
Okay.
He's a novelist.
Okay.
I don't know how I know that, because I don't own any of his books and I've never read them, but I guess I've seen a shitload of them because the name snapped into my head. So, well done, Clive Barker. Somehow you've implanted your name in my brain. I don't know how. Kudos.
So continuing the story, Batman learns there's another attack on the university. There's another fundraiser going on.
Yeah.
So, quick side note. I have two quick side notes on this little part. Do fundraisers usually happen like back to back, like day to day, like that? I don't know how much money they're needing to raise.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it seems, that is a little ridiculous. I don't know if it's one of those things like, well, oh shit, the last one didn't go so well, so I guess we'll do another one.
Right. And it goes really well because, so the opening shot is people dropping in cash and checks.
Yeah.
And I paused on one of the checks because I thought it was Bruce that was dropping it in because it looked like his suit. How much money do you think the animators guessed people were donating in this series?
Like, I don't know, somewhere around 100-something bucks.
The first check that's dropped in is $80 million.
What?
So I guess there's some other millionaire roaming around Gotham, or someone who just feels really bad about Gotham State University, because there is an $80 million check just casually dropped in.
Oh my God.
To this donation basket.
Yeah. Amongst a whole bunch of other $80 million checks, I'm
probably.
sure. Yeah, they're just going to build a whole bunch of libraries, just a lot of people's names going up in a lot of buildings in the next couple of years.
Probably just one.
Yeah.
That guy just bought the school from Bruce. So continuing that scene, Scarecrow interrupts the fundraiser by activating his fear gas on the entire staff.
Oh yeah, he like pumps it into the vents, and it hits
everyone at the fundraiser is hit by the fear gas, and he takes hold of Dr. Long. Does he bring him into the blimp?
Yeah,
right?
They all get into the blimp because Scarecrow has both a helicopter and a blimp.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's all about that air travel.
It is, but he loves that air travel apparently. And he can fly them both, which is really impressive for an unemployed college professor.
Yeah. So before he gets into the blimp, as he's carrying Dr. Long out, Batman makes his appearance and is stopped by a group of, rich socialites in Gotham.
Yeah.
So Scarecrow gets away again. Bruce chases after him. Beautiful fight scene.
Yeah, that's
up
really
in the
good.
Blimp.
Yeah, I mean, I made a note too. There's like one particular shot, and it's like a really, really wide shot, kind of looking down the street up into the sky, and you see the blimp going across, and Batman dangling from it. It's like, it is. They do have those really cinematic shots in here, and it's like, oh wow, that's really beautiful.
Well, Bruce Timm actually encouraged the animators to go as big as possible in this series. His main point was he wanted to do stories that couldn't be done in live action.
Yeah.
So I think that might have been why there's so many blimps.
So many blimps. Yeah. Well, I mean, you do got to mix it up a little bit,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the next episode we're at a submarine.
Yeah.
And so I think like especially these stories, they want to go as big as possible on every note.
Yeah, and they do, and it makes it cinematic and it makes it fun.
Yeah. So we continue.
Oh yeah, I think I made a note here. The next like pre-commercial break is Batman's like on the side of the blimp with one of the henchmen, and they both fall. So cut to commercial because again, Batman and Peril. We come back and we have once again the fantastic trope of people falling and conveniently landing on things. This time it's an awning.
We're gonna start a list in our show of all of the conveniences, the convenient soft objects around Gotham.
Yeah. So water. Do we count snow from when they leave off the train in the Christmas episode?
I mean, it's not like a death fall.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, yeah. So we won't exclude that, but yeah. So we have a river. It was more like a drainage ditch or whatever. We have water. We have a awning. Like 2 minutes later, the other henchman gets thrown out the window and lands in
a giant bonsai tree.
Yeah, it was like a giant tree, but it does have a bonsai look to it. Yeah, I've never seen a bonsai tree that big. But yeah, right. So it is very, very convenient.
So after the henchmen fall, Batman's still kind of dangling, and as he's trying to pull himself up, the fear toxin hits him again. And he has another kind of hallucination of Thomas Wayne popping up, continuing his spite of, you're not living up to the Wayne name.
Yeah.
And then we probably have the most iconic Batman line of all time. Yes. Would you like to say the line?
I mean, you guys all know it, but this is the first use of it, and this is kind of where it became famous. But as he's trying to basically like psych himself up, he's like, no, I am vengeance, I am the night, I am Batman, and I had an audible squeal when I heard it actually used in an episode. I mean, obviously now it's used all the time, and it became like part of the publicity for the show when it came back on Cartoon Network, and Kevin Conroy used that a lot, like introductions at Comic-Con panels and stuff, and it's become like a staple of the show.
It's the Batman mantra.
It is the Batman mantra. That's like the first time it's used. And it's one of those weird moments where you think it could be corny, and it's not. It's just awesome.
It feels right at this moment.
So good.
So, Batman uses this new energy that he gained for himself, and he stops the blimp, saves Dr. Long, Scarecrow gets away. And I looked at the timestamp, and there's like 3 minutes left of the episode.
There's a lot left in the episode. Yeah. Well, and then the Scarecrow gets away on a glider, so that's his third flying aerial vehicle of the show. And then the blimp crashes into a building and explodes. That's a lot of collateral damage, and like that's a lot lot of cleanup.
Whoever donated that $80 million, they have money to spend on these buildings.
Now it's going to fixing the massive hole in one of the buildings there.
Right.
But yeah. Big ass explosion.
We mentioned this earlier. I wanted to bring up the Scarecrow's plan and how he's so proud that it succeeded. He had his 2-part plan was burn down the bank and scare the staff, and that was going to shut down the school.
Shut down the whole school. Yeah.
The fear toxin doesn't last forever.
No, yeah, it wears off.
And the bank didn't burn down.
His plan really didn't come together very well.
Right.
Did it? It didn't help that, how Batman catches him is he's wearing a mask manufactured by his own company? I guess I didn't quite get that because it was like Crane Manufacturing.
Well, he went over all the manufacturing plants.
Right. It's like, I don't know if it was the Scarecrow mask itself or like a residue on it. That was a little ambiguous.
It was probably a residue because he went over the chemical plants.
Yeah.
I saw Ace Chemicals pop up.
And Star Labs.
It
was Access Chemicals that was a reference. Ace does pop up in the next episode.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it was Axis. That's a reference to the '89 movie, and then Star Labs, which of course is very famous in the world and comes back in later. But one of them was
Crane Manufacturing.
Yeah, Crane Manufacturing. So it's like I guess that's his company.
I guess. I mean, everyone's parents own some kind of big industry here.
Yeah, I don't know if I just wasn't paying close enough attention or they didn't explain it very well, but
they kind of rushed through it. They're like detective work. We got it under control.
The computers in this world are amazing. They can cross-reference disparate things so quickly and come up with really detailed responses that just get you exactly where you need to go. And
right.
Conveniently just talk through the Batmobile computer.
Right. This was 1992 Siri, and they did it better.
Better than modern Siri by a lot, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should get them working on that.
So he finds Crane. Crane gets hit by his own. He takes off his mask, and is hit by his own fear gas. And I thought in most stories, like, he's immune, just like Joker's immune to Joker gas. I thought he's immune. Oh, well, whatever.
Yeah.
He's hit by the fear gas. You learn that he has a fear of bats.
Yeah.
Very convenient.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if he has a deep-rooted fear of bats or if it was more like in that moment, the most prescient fear was a Batman showing up.
Well, because first he sees an actual bat before Batman shows up.
He sees like a giant kind of bat creature. There's multiple uses of giant bat creatures, actually. Because when the one he sees kind of has like that like Fantasia Night on Bald Mountain kind of look to it, right? It's like blue and has the yellow face. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's right, yeah. Because when all the people at the charity event, they also see a giant bat. We don't actually see their perspective. We just see them attacking Batman. Right. He grapples out. Mm-hmm. Here we actually see what Crane is seeing, and then Batman shows up and takes him out. The silhouette of Bald Mountain is when he sees Batman. Oh, that's right. There's two. He sees a giant bat, and that's right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he sees multiple giant bats.
Because that one, I want to know if there's any cross between writers or artists between animated series and Gargoyles, because that felt very much like...
I think there was some... Yeah, it did look a lot like Gargoyles.
Yeah, so he catches Crane.
And then he's out. We get like a brief little gag at police headquarters where Bullock's like, I'll turn in my badge to prove that... Oh, no, it's like, if Batman and Crane are working together, like, I would turn in my badge, and Scarecrow's like dangling from the ceiling fan. Yeah. It's like, a little gag. And then we get that last scene of Bruce out at the cemetery in front of his parents' graves, closing off that whole loop of coming to terms with, not necessarily their deaths, but that, he's still doing them proud.
Yeah.
And we mentioned earlier that this was the first episode in the series that dealt with Bruce's background, Batman's background.
Yeah.
And at least according to a bit of trivia I found, that, so obviously first episode in this series, but there have been actually very few references in other media to his parents before this. So it was in the 89 movie, obviously, and then there was one episode of the Super Friends cartoon back in like 1973 that dealt with it. But I mean, I haven't actually watched all of like the 60s TV show. But I mean, that was so light in camp, they generally didn't talk too much about the fact that, his parents were murdered and that's why he's Batman. And I thought it was interesting because basically from 39 to 89, so you got 50 years of Batman history with almost no reference of his parents in the different forms of media. And then from this point on, it just never stops.
Right.
Like there's even that great supercut out there of all the different times we've seen his parents die. And that supercut is I think 1 year old or 2 years old.
Right.
And since then we now have, I think, at least 2 or 3 additional outlets for that to throw in there. You got the Batman vs Superman movie, another one of the animated movies. We've seen his parents get shot so many times, and here we don't see them get killed. We just see that his parents are dead, and he's trying to live up to them.
Right. I think this is exactly how the movies and future iterations of Batman should handle it.
Yeah.
And I think it's handled so elegantly, and it's you learn everything you need to know without seeing what we've already seen.
And it's nice that it wasn't in the first episode. Obviously they had to get some of that information out relatively early on, but it doesn't have to be in the first episode. It's the great thing about the series is just treating it like this world exists. We're going to, piece that information that comes along, but we're not just going to, slam a whole bunch of origin shit right in the beginning.
Yeah.
We talked about this before, too, that there's so much of this episode that then made its way into Batman Begins. So, I mean, not only the use of the Scarecrow itself, obviously, and the visualization of the characters are very different. Here, it's kind of a stupid look. I mean, he's very gangly, very skinny, and he's got the hat and the mask.
Yeah.
I always liked the redesign of him a lot better when it came to New Batman Adventures, where he's kind of got more of like a skeletal look, and he's got the noose hanging around his neck. And then compare that to Batman Begins, which is much more refined. It's him in a suit, and he's just got the hood and the noose. But there are some small details like the gas coming out of his hands, the fact the mask also serves as a gas mask for him, Bruce's fear of not living up to his parents, getting trapped by the fear, then getting set on fire. Like there's a lot of plot elements, a lot of thematic elements, a lot of character details. They're made their way into Batman Begins. And it's hard to say if it's directly that got pulled. I don't know how much Nolan, maybe he was sitting down and watched this episode. I mean, this is a nice, very simplistic, refined view of Scarecrow. That's probably why I made it in there.
I thought this was the first time we saw Scarecrow, but he's actually been a pretty common villain in most media.
Yeah.
I mean, there was an episode in the 66 Batman that revolved around Scarecrow. There was an episode of Super Friends that revolved around Scarecrow.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's been kind of a big villain.
Yeah.
And pulling him for Batman Begins, I think it was a safe move. And I think that's why they chose this villain.
Well, I think safe, I mean, he was a character that had been brought up a lot kind of in the interim between Batman and Robin and Batman Begins. I mean, there was a whole bunch of different projects. I'd heard the term intimidation game once, but I couldn't find that again. You said Unchained. Batman Unchained was
so
one of the versions.
When I was looking up the history of Scarecrow in media, there was the unwritten supposed fifth installment of the 90s Batman movie chain.
Yeah, it would have been Schumacher's third movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Batman Unchained, where it was going to put together Harley Quinn and Scarecrow to kind of bring back Joker. They wanted Jack Nicholson to come back.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, where like Batman hallucinates, the Joker comes back.
And so one of the fun facts that I learned about this was who was top of the line for casting of Scarecrow. Mm-hmm. And I guess this must have been before the supposed Tim Burton Superman movie was coming out. Because top choice was all of our favorites, Nick Cage.
Would have been ridiculous. Could have worked.
The two other ones, I don't know who I could choose between these three, because it was Nick Cage was top choice. Right under him was Steve Buscemi.
Oh, my God.
And right under him, and I think this is my favorite one. I would love to see this man in any part of the DC universe. Jeff Goldblum as Scarecrow.
Oh, Jeff Goldblum. Everything's better with Jeff Goldblum.
Everything is better with Jeff Goldblum, because you have to imagine this is right after Jurassic Park hype.
Oh, that could have been amazing. I remember Howard Stern being mentioned once. I don't know if that was a serious consideration or not. Well, then the casting for Harley was
supposed to be Courtney Love.
Yeah, which is perfect in its own weird way,
I guess.
Yeah. Human train wreck, that one.
So jumping back to the episode, there's like a couple of points I want to bring up. So we keep talking about Batman's biggest fear is disappointing his parents. Mm-hmm. But there was the scene, and I probably looked a little bit too much, and I might have stretched this out a bit, but the scene with him and Summer, where Summer's on TV and she's repeating, you failed, you failed, you failed, you failed. I saw that to be, because the only time he doesn't hallucinate his parents, he hallucinates
her.
He hallucinates the failure. And it was right after they talked about how he failed to catch Scarecrow.
Yeah.
And so I think his subconscious, deep-rooted fear isn't disappointing the family, but it's the guilt over his parents' death. I mean, obviously, it's always over his parents' death, but it's the failure to catch the villain. The first time he ever failed to catch the villain was when the villain shot his parents, and he couldn't do anything then.
Yeah,
and
that's a good point.
Doing this, like living at this moment, he's failing his father. He's failing the Wayne name because he's feeling that emotion that he felt in the very beginning.
No, that is a good point, and this is a nice thematic episode, and you can see why pieces of it directly or indirectly end up in Batman Begins. Jumping back there again real quick, because you were saying you thought it was like a safe choice for them to do Scarecrow for that movie. I think obviously we had just talked about the fact that that character came up a lot in preparation, kind of as they're gearing up towards making another Batman movie. And over the course of the podcast, I'll probably talk a lot about the things that I felt Nolan actually did wrong with those movies. There's a lot of elements of Batman that I think kind of didn't do completely right. But one thing I would give him as a filmmaker, he really understands themes really, really well. And the use of Scarecrow in Batman Begins is absolutely perfect, because it's all about him overcoming his fear and overcoming the trauma. And so the Scarecrow, perfect villain to bring in there. And what I'll give him credit for is he almost has like the opposite problem of the current DC universe, is that I think at his core, Nolan always understood the characters really well. Mm-hmm. Maybe with the exception of Bane. But all of the characters he brought in, like fundamentally, they are the right characters. Some of the trimmings are different. Like obviously Scarecrow is kind of simplified down. Catwoman is referred to as Catwoman, it's just Selena Kyle. Mm-hmm. But at their core, they really understood Scarecrow well and bring him in. And I love Batman Begins. It's the best Batman movie. The Dark Knight is a better film, but not a very good Batman film. Mm-hmm. And I will probably talk about that a lot. But Batman Begins is amazing. I really want to go watch it again now, having watched this episode. But we should get on to the next episode, episode 4.
The Last Laugh, reminding us that this is a kid's show.
It is, yeah. Great, juicy thematic stuff in the last one. This one, kind of like Chris as the Joker, very much just simply plotted by the numbers, Joker caper.
Right.
I don't even have that many notes on it because there's really not that much that happens. I mean, so there's like the barge in the beginning, which is spewing off some sort of gas, which infects everybody.
We learn is Joker gas.
Yeah, I think the first use of Joker gas in the show, because I don't think
Yeah, because he didn't use it.
He didn't use that. And
Christmas.
I don't remember, I wasn't paying attention for it. Was this also the first use of the Joker's theme? Because he has his own theme in the animated series, and I don't think it was in Christmas the Joker episode, but here it's used.
This episode reminded me why music is so important to a show. Because there's a moment where it's great, where you hear the Joker theme for the first time, and it's wonderful, and you get the sense of Joker.
It's got like a carnival beat to it, and
And then there's the chase music with this weird 90s drum sample set behind it that feels... We'll get there. Let's start at the beginning.
Yeah, the gas comes off. It infects a guy driving an armored car, and he drives it off of one of the split bridges that's being raised, conveniently bailing out and landing on the road before the van crashes into the water. So
conveniency number 3.
Yeah, so I'm gonna we'll add that one onto the list, and then and then from there we go under the water and we assume, okay, the Joker, it's clearly the Joker, he's probably just got a barge. No, he has a submarine attached to, it's a submarine with a barge cover. It's kind of like Bond's scuba suit in Goldfinger that has like the duck on the surface to be the distraction. That's basically what he's got going on here. Again, where does he get this shit?
Get blimps, then Joker can get a submarine.
That's true. I mean, and Scarecrow, who isn't actually robbing the university. He's
just also a double major in aviation.
Yeah, exactly. That's how we can get blimps. And I don't know. Yeah, again, it is a cartoon. We got to give them a little
we got to give them some leeway.
Yeah. So we know the Joker's gassing the whole place. And then I think kind of the next big scene is back at the Batcave, right?
Yeah.
Batman sent a little drone out into the gas, and the warning is that prolonged exposure will lead to permanent madness. Yeah.
And right as he reads that, he calls for Alfred, who is laughing hysterically upstairs. It is so. To give preface, this is April Fool's Day.
Yes, that's true. The whole thing opens with a newspaper being thrown down. It says "Happy April Fool's Day."
Right. Slow news day for Gotham.
Yeah. Which, how is it ever a slow news day for Gotham? But hey, it works.
And we also skipped over my favorite. I think this might be my favorite Alfred joke when Bruce comes back from doing his Batman thing, and he's tired, and he's trying to shave. Doesn't ever finish shaving, by the way.
You're right. He doesn't. Yeah.
One stride and then stops. Yeah. Alfred comes in. He says, "Sir, I've drawn you a bath." And Bruce walks over. The bath is empty, and he holds up a sheet of paper.
Yeah, a little drawing of the bath. It's a great joke. Yeah, and Bruce has no humor about it whatsoever.
Right, because he has no funny bone in his body.
Nope.
Supposed by Alfred.
Yeah.
So jumping back, the gas. Makes it from the city all the way into Wayne Manor.
Yeah.
And
it gets Alfred.
Right, affects Alfred. He's starting to go mad. He's breaking everything. And Batman's like, okay, I guess I'll have to intervene now.
Yeah, I guess I should go save the city now because it personally affects me. So then he takes the Batboat, the good old Batboat, out to the barge, jumps onto it. And there is a great visual gag where the Joker is looking through the periscope and he kind of pans across and Batman's standing there not moving. He kind of pans past him, looks back, and then Batman punches the periscope and it flexes through the thing and smacks the Joker.
Right.
It's silly, but it's fun.
Up to this point, we're maybe 12 minutes into the episode.
Yeah, we're really far. Very little happens at the beginning of this episode.
The only dialogue we've had up to this point is one-liners. And I kind of love that. It also kind of aggravates me.
Yeah, a little bit. It's not, juicy character development dialogue, but it is, I think, Mark Hamill warming up to his role, though.
Right, and it's a different version of Joker where this Joker follows the Killing Joke Joker. And I think we actually see, Joker was a stand-up comedian before he became the Joker.
Yeah.
And I think this was the episode where we were reminded this is the version of Joker where Mark Hamill isn't afraid to make him actually funny, not
He
just
is.
like evil
straight
funny,
up
but
funny.
like he can drop one-liners. And
Yeah, and he's. I think what works here, where we're really starting to see that caricature come together, is this Joker really only cares about amusing himself. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like one of those things where, you know, you get moments in all kinds of media and TV shows and movies where a character says a line basically to themselves to like have a quip at the end of like a scene or a show, and obviously we laugh at it because we're, you know, watching it. But if you were to go into that real world, it's just a guy standing there making a joke to himself. And the Joker's the one character where that works because all he really cares about is amusing himself, and then we get the benefit of it too. But a moment that really sums up how well they do the character. So after, you know, Batman attacks the barge, he dispatches with the two normal goons. Then there's this giant hulking clown, the Captain Clown. And the clown picks up Batman and spins him until he can't focus, and then puts him in a locked garbage can. Silly, but this would and get past state Batman. I'll give them credit on this one. Again, It's better than a fucking desk. So, and the great moment is then Joker's like, oh, let's poke some air holes. And he grabs a knife and he just stabs a whole bunch of places into the can. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, that is the Joker. He's just made a joke, obviously, but there's still genuine menace. He's just stabbing the crap out of this thing. And it fits because he's amusing himself, but he's still a real threat. And I think here we see those moments where he kind of turns on a dime real quickly from just being silly and kind of whimsical to being a genuine threat.
Yeah.
You know, because in the beginning, he's walking around with this giant, like, fishbowl helmet on, and he's just breaking into stores. He's not really attacking anybody. It's kind of just more for the fun of it. Mm-hmm. And then Batman shows up, and he's actually really dangerous. Again, we're starting to see the character come together a little bit more there.
Right. We see kind of the three Jokers merging kind of the best traits of each into this one character. You have kind of the mob boss mentality of the 40s.
He's got his goons.
He's got a lot of the campiness and the humor of the 60s.
Yeah.
And obviously the psychopathic natures of the 80s. Like, this is kind of the conglomeration of all three Jokers into this one character.
Yeah. It is good. So, I mean, the episode's kind of meh, but I will say that there's moments in this really set him up well. Yeah, so then Batman stuffed into a garbage can.
Thrown into the ocean. Lake Gotham, or whatever it is.
Yeah, the river. I don't know.
Thrown into the water.
Yeah, we get a Casablanca reference, which made me happy. Favorite movie. So, I love that. Yeah, and then Batman, saved by the Batboat.
Because the Batboat shoots lasers.
Batboat shoots lasers. It's really convenient that he waited till it settled down to the bottom of the river before he called in the boat to come and shoot lasers and cut him out of there. But again, convenient escape from peril, but yeah, it basically works.
So he tracks Joker back to... Where is he after that?
He goes... Joker's at Ace Waste Disposal.
Okay.
So that was interesting because Ace Chemicals famously is where he...
becomes
in the comics,
the Joker. Yeah.
becomes the Joker. This is Ace Waste Disposal. Maybe they're related, maybe they're not. I don't know. But yeah, Joker's basically just pumping out his gas in liquid form, dumping it onto the barge. Yes, Batman comes back, dispatches with the other two henchmen. Again, this time they actually get exposed to the thing and go crazy.
We learned that Captain Clown is a robot.
Yeah, I did make a note about that we had to have a moment where the face got peeled off, so we knew it was a robot before it got squished in the car compactor. Because we can't have it seem like it might be an actual person.
It is still a kid's show.
It is still a kid's show. So yeah, the robot is compressed. And in that moment, as the Joker is like riding off into the center of the factory, again, he has that brief turn where he's like actually mad at Batman. And it's like the joke's wearing off sort of for him. And the fun is like now he's getting frustrated. And again, shows he can be a serious threat when he wants to be. He's not completely silly.
And so that leads into a really interesting chase scene. There are moments of it that definitely pull from like the Buster Keaton short where he's like trapped in a
Charlie
clock.
Chaplin.
Charlie Chaplin, yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah. So Charlie Chaplin's inside the giant mechanical gears being pushed through. Yeah, because there's just huge, like 20 feet diameter exposed gears in this place.
And so Joker and Batman are kind of maneuvering around just generic warehouse things.
Generic factory
things. So you got
things.
gears, you have conveyor belts, you have
tons of just like loose wires hanging down that you can swing along.
Yeah, swinging like containers.
A garbage chute that leads to a giant furnace.
And so it's an interesting chase, and I like the use of the space. Like we said before, Bruce Timm encouraged writers and artists to make the space feel as big as possible.
Yeah, and it works here. It does feel really big.
But this is where the music comes in, that just feels so...
Oh, yeah.
I never felt suspenseful for any of this. Like, Batman is about to fall to his... I mean, obviously, he's Batman. He's going to save himself. But he's about to fall into lava. And he does technically fall until he uses his...
batarang, yeah. He follows the Joker into a garbage chute. They, like, slide along, and the Joker swings off on a rope, and then Batman's left hanging on the edge of this chute over the furnace, and the Joker dumps more garbage, and it knocks him into the fire.
But the choice of music in this episode really shows how music makes a scene. It killed any suspense.
It did. It was really silly.
It was odd.
And then, yeah, so, of course, Batman's falling into the fire, swings out, and then Joker, trapped once again by the same basic mechanism that got him last time. He trips on a loose wire and falls over the side of the thing and is left there dangling the exact same way as in Christmas with the Joker.
Yeah, that was last laugh.
Yeah, and then of course there's the one final scene.
Oh right.
Yeah, where Alfred is sweeping up the study at Wayne Manor, and he's upset because he broke a Ming vase.
Priceless Ming vase.
As far as I can tell, in all children's cartoons, all vases are Ming.
And priceless.
And he's broken it, and Bruce makes a comment, I'll just take it out of your salary. And Alfred, oh, yes, sir, that's fine. It's like, oh, Alfred, April Fool's. Like, okay, yeah. It is a kid's show. I mean, there is like a bookending element there. So it kind of works. But again, a little silly.
So we're kind of 0 for 2 with Joker stories right now.
Yeah, a little bit. I think for me, I'm a little harsh on it because I mentioned this last time. The version of this I've seen the most is Mask of the Phantasm, and he's so good in that. And it helps too that was an actual theatrically released movie, so they could kind of up his level of violence. Like he actually straight up kills people in that movie compared to this, where no one really gets hurt. Yeah, so far the Joker stories have been kind of weak, kind of formulaic.
But we're also looking at it from two people, like we said before, have seen the progression of Hamill's Joker.
Yeah,
and how much more evil and crazy he becomes. And he's still working on the character. The writers are still trying to figure out how far they can push Hamill and push the Joker himself. Right now, like we think of the Arkham series and we think of Phantasm, and like Hamill hasn't hit that point yet. There's still ways to go. Luke Skywalker to every person watching the show, and so it's important to realize that he's still coming into his character in this episode. As it goes on, the stories will get better as he's able to progress his character. There are 4 characters that don't really get a backstory in the animated universe. It's Joker, Penguin.
Does Catwoman get a...
I think she gets a brief background story in the 2-parter. There's one other I can't...
It's been too long, I can't
quite remember. But I'm wondering if the lack of giving them an origin story kind of hinders the writers a bit, especially in these early episodes where, I mean, so far we've seen 2 for 2. Not character origins, but...
I kind of see what you're saying. I don't know. I mean, I think... Even at this point, the Joker was so well known that kind of like Batman, I almost feel like they didn't necessarily have to give him an origin. And already he's the most frequently used villain. He's going to continue to be through the rest of the animated series.
Through the rest of the Batverse.
The rest of the Batverse, yeah. And so I think they treat him kind of like a supporting character in some sense.
Yeah.
Where they almost don't need to give the background because he's just kind of a constant presence, and they don't need to introduce him to us in the same way they have to do with Scarecrow and Man-Bat and these other ones that are a little bit less well known. I don't know. I think it's also one of those things. Any show has high and low episodes, and I mean it's pretty regular that you kind of get these like really interesting, deeper episodes paired with kind of crappier ones. That's consistent across almost all shows, I'd say. I don't know, maybe. But again,
we'll find out through more episodes.
We'll find out as we go along here. Yeah. Any other kind of comments on these two?
No, we kind of expunged everything there was about another Joker and about the first appearance of Scarecrow.
No, I think that basically covers it. Yeah, so the next episode will be Pretty Poison and the Underdwellers, and then possibly also
so we're
POV.
Meeting Poison Ivy.
Yeah, the Sewer King. And then an interesting kind of character episode. I'm kind of excited about POV, actually. Yeah, so that's where we're heading coming up here. We now have social media stuff, too.
Yes.
Which is exciting. Yeah, so we are at Timm with 2 M's, Talk Pod on Twitter, and we're also, same thing, Timm Talk Pod on Instagram, and timmtalkpod@gmail.com.
And yeah, Chris, where can we find you? Stuff?
Yeah, I'm at Lordifer on everything. There's really no reason to look. There's nothing of interest there. And, of course, Cameron, you're at?
I'm at Cameron Dexter on pretty much everything.
Yeah, and every week I'm going to remind people to check out Cameron's Instagram because he does these awesome Disney animations, and I'm hoping he's going to do some for the podcast, maybe? maybe
we'll see
at
if
some
I have
point.
time.
Yeah, so I think that basically wraps it up for this week. So thank you once again to Trevor Reese for coming down and being our audio engineer. He also has a great podcast called The Podcast of Two Worlds, all about The Flash, so highly recommend checking that out. And we're recording down here at the podcast booth at the Nerdist School, so check out nerdistschool.com and come down to the school and see some shows. And I think that's basically it.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
All right, thank you. Bye.